All geometry has an axis associated with it. We will use a cube primitive for this part of the demonstration. There are 5 axis control tools available. We find them here. They are the axis, move axis to center of object, normalize location, normalize rotation, and normalize scale tools. The axis tool has 3 functions. The most obvious are the show and hide modes. By simply clicking on the icon, these 2 modes toggle back and forth. Notice that when the axis is visible and active, the selector cage around the object disappears. In wireframe mode, we can see the axis turn on and off. When the axis is active, any translation, rotation, or scaling will affect only the axis and not the object. By clicking on the object, the axis becomes inactive but remains visible. Clicking on the axis tool will activate it again, which is the 3rd function. When the axis is inactive or hidden, any translation, rotation, and scaling performed affects the object according to the axis position. The following exercise will demonstrate the use of the axis tool to create a piece of geometry. Drag the fan blade object to the grid. Turn on the axis. We want to change the default orientation of the blade, so we rotate the axis -90 in X and -90 in Z. Turn off the axis and click the Normalize Rotation tool. Since the object is active, it will rotate to the normalized position. Now click on the Normalize Location tool. The object will reposition with its axis at 0, 0, 0. Drag the blade to X equals 2. Click on the axis tool to activate the axis. Click on the Normalize Location tool to move just the axis to 0, 0, 0. Only the axis will move. Click on the blade to deactivate the axis. Copy the blade and rotate it in Z to 15 degrees. Note that the blade rotates around the location of the axis. Copy the blade again and rotate it in Z to 30 degrees. Copy the blade again, but this time activate the axis and normalize the rotation. Turn off the axis. Now rotate the last copy in Z to 15 degrees. The blade will rotate from its new default position. Boolean the first 2 blades together and turn on the axis. Normalize the rotation and deactivate the axis. Copy the assembly and rotate in Z to 60 degrees. Boolean everything together and activate the axis. Normalize the rotation and deactivate the axis again. Copy the assembly and rotate in Z to 180 degrees. Now select the first set and click on the Move Axis to Center of Object tool. Notice that the axis will move to the center point of the geometry bounding box. It is no longer at 0, 0, 0. Deactivate the axis. Boolean the 2 sets together. Click on the Move Axis to Center of Object tool and deactivate the axis. Since the geometry is symmetrical, the axis is now back at 0, 0 with some Z value. Copy the assembly one more time and with the axis active, rotate it in Z -90. Hide the axis and normalize the rotation. The geometry will rotate +90 in Z. Boolean the 2 sets together. We now have a completed fan blade assembly. Click on the hub object and click on the Normalize Location tool. The hub will center in the fan blade assembly. Glue the hub to the fan blades. Save the geometry to the Object Library, title it Fan. Delete the fan from the grid. The last tool is the Normalize Scale tool. This will return geometry to its native size and scale under certain conditions. The basic operating principles are as follows. Create a torus and scale it in Z. Copy the torus, move it over, and Boolean it to the first. Rotate it about 90 degrees in Y. Now click on the Normalize Scale tool. Each torus in the assembly will return to its default construction size. Undo. Now create a cube and scale it up just a little. Boolean it to the torus assembly. Now click on the Normalize Scale tool. The cube returns to its default size and the torus assembly shrinks a little. The highest level object controls the amount of scale. The order of the Boolean operation is important.